And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone that can hear the sound of my voice to this week's edition of the Petty and Ill-Informed Podcast, where we venture our petty and ill-informed opinion about a variety of topics. Joining me from the Emerald Isle, Kevo.
Oh, did anything happen this week? I'm not sure anything of consequence that we could talk about happened.
Yes. We'll get to it. And from down south, Tom.
Hello, everybody. So, what's up, everyone? How are we doing?
So, before Kevin literally dies, let's discuss the elephant.
No. I said I'm happy enough not talking about the situation. I mean, that's it, isn't it? I'm happy enough not discussing the situation that happened in America because it made no difference to anybody's thought process at all. So
basically, Trump was found guilty of everything, was he?
Yes, 34 counts, and and again, I predicted last week that he wouldn't be found guilty. They would have a hung jury, which I think they were counting on. And so some of the things that I've noticed that people are posting is that 12 people agreed that he was guilty. Well, I'm a bit of a nerd. I'm not gonna lie. I do read things like this, like the court notes and things like that. And I think that if you were paying attention, I don't think you could have come up with a different verdict. But again, that seems to be the question of the day. I mean, people make their own choices as far as that goes, but that's my opinion. And I wouldn't have been able to be on the jury anyway. So that saves me. And I wouldn't want to be one of those people. I can definitely tell you that.
Kevin, what you say is really interesting. So you know enough about this case. You've been geeky enough and nerdy enough to actually read up on the details.
Yes.
So you know why it is that. Can you summarize why it is that Trump is most definitely guilty? If you believe that, having seen the evidence, no one could come up to any other conclusion.
Well,
tell us why. If you can.
The issue being that, first of all, the prosecution's case had a lot of different witnesses in it. Now, they were also instructed that this Michael Cohen guy was a felon and had served time for perjury and everything like that around this case. And so the jury was told that you can't use him as an only source. You have to find some collaborating, witness or evidence that says that he's telling the truth. You can use him as a narrator, right? So you couldn't, convict him based only on his
Cohen's testimony.
Yeah, his testimony. So it seemed like the thing that was really the issue that turned these people over was the discussion with this David Pecker character, who was the leader of the National Enquirer, and the decision that was made with three people in the room that not only would the National Enquirer take information about Trump and bury it, and also they would spread negative information about other people. This is where you get this situation where Ted Cruz's father was accused of trying to be part of the plot to kill President Kennedy and those types of things. So the negative stories were put out against other people, and that in itself is not necessarily a crime, but he said at the time that I'm going to be, this Pecker character, that I'm going to be the eyes and ears for your campaign, basically, right? So this is where the issue comes into the fact that this part of the this part of the campaign was in league with the guy from the National Enquirer, which again may not be a crime, but the issue then becomes there's two parts of a felony conviction for campaign crimes. Otherwise, it would have been a misdemeanor for falsifying records and things like that. So the other part that you have to prove is that at that point in time, there's three elements of it. Were they entering into a conspiracy? No, you don't have to actually follow through with a conspiracy for it to be a conspiracy. It's just like if I conspire with you two to say, okay, let's kill this dude. And then somebody does it. I'm guilty. I'm as guilty of it as you are, because I've conspired with a group of people to do it. I think this is part of the problem that we're in, because Trump was using his sort of idea that he wasn't, the direct person who made the payment, that should mean that he wasn't guilty at all. But through conspiracy rules in a RICO case, then that's what you got. So that's part of the issue. So the elements that you had to prove, and this is where people are making the mistake. There's three elements to prove that in a conspiracy thing. There's three elements. You can pick any one. So in other words, people are saying, well, the judge instructed the jurors to either find the initial crime and then use one of the three criteria to make sure that this was a conspiracy case. No, the three criteria aren't the same. So people could have come to the same conclusion based on what they thought it was. And so that's how that works. I mean, I'm not making up New York law. That's just the way it is. And nobody changed the New York law for this scenario. And so that's what happens. So obviously the case proved that the bookkeeping was wrong, and that would be a misdemeanor. And then using these other things that they came through to find out that there was use of campaign funds to do it, or illegal campaign contributions. In other words, if they're doing this for the fact that they were afraid that this would really sink the campaign if Stormy Daniels' story had came out. I mean, this is after the grabbing him by the pussy thing came out. And so they thought, okay, this is going to be another nail in the coffin. So this whole idea that they were saying is, oh, well, I was just trying to save Melania from going through it. Well, the incident happened 10 years before that. So, so at the time he wasn't really worried about trying to cover up the whole scenario. It was just now. And it was just coincidentally weeks before the election. And so the case is that Michael Cohen had taken out a second mortgage to make the payment to Stormy Daniels. Thereby, he made a legal campaign contribution over the amount that's allowed by law. And so that's how some people looked at it. So, I mean, from that standpoint, you have to say that's it. Now, then they said, well, the payments that he got in reimbursement for that was, for legal fee retainers and stuff like that. I think that was a fairly veiled thing. If you look at all the documentations that they I mean, this was basically a paper case. And with paper cases, whenever you have books and all these different things like that, the chances of conviction in a paper case where you're saying, okay, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? You're saying you didn't pay that, you did pay that. I mean, they're 99% sure to go through. I thought it was just going to be one of those things where it was a hung jury because of the fact that somebody was going to say, you know, Trump wasn't guilty. You know what I mean? And they were going to hang to it to the point where 6 weeks from now, they were going to say, okay, we can't come to the determination. So therefore, we have to have a mistrial, which again, Richard, last week you were talking about that guy that had a baby with what was his name? John Edwards, who did go to trial and had a hung jury. So he wasn't found not guilty. He just
they didn't have nearly the same amount of evidence.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, from that standpoint, yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I think he already sort of foretold what he thought might happen, because again, before this was even done, it was rigged. You know what I mean? It was rigged. And it's not surprising to me that afterwards it's done. But what's upsetting to me is that these quislings from the Republican Party, you know, come up and then they just sit there and say, oh, this is the worst thing ever, blah, 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 because they all want to be vice president. And so they know that they've got a chance in hell if they say anything negative about it. Because if you say anything negative about it, you run out. That's it. You're run out of the party and you can forget it. So as with politicians, and the scariest thing, and why I think most people are upset that are rich or politicians, is this. Normally, they are untouchable by the law. They get away with everything. And so to have not only a rich man, but also a politician get convicted of something literally scares the shit out of them. That's my opinion.
Well, I disagree.
Do you?
I look at this from a global conspiracy point of view. The only rich people that get prosecuted are people that have rocked the boat. So they're token rich people being prosecuted, so the other rich people can tell the poor people, oh, look, the system works. Here's this rich person going to jail.
Yeah.
And he won't ever do any, like, real time, let's be honest. No. Even if by some miracle he does go to prison, he'll be put in one of them country club white collar rich places.
No. I agree with you, Richard. I don't think that there's a hope in hell that he's going to actually sort of feel any real consequence for it. I mean, and this is the thing where he's put out this thing that says he's a political prisoner. He's not in prison. He's living at home. You know what I mean? I mean,
I kind of agree with him. I've said from day one, I thought this entire thing was bollocks. Yeah. I think this is just the Republican Party trying their best to smear him so they can run a sensible candidate that's going to toe the party line. Well, like, I'm not a big Trump fan at all. No. Don't get me wrong. So when he was president, you know, I thought it was funny. Don't get me wrong. But the way he behaved on Twitter was appalling for the leader of the free world.
Yes. Well, all I'm saying is okay, if you look at this case, and that's what I'm saying is, I'm taking a microscopic view of this as one person who's charged with a crime. I am not taking the larger global view of why aren't these other people in jail then? You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm
Petty Informed podcast, Kevin. We go big. We go giant conspiracy.
I have always said, if they've done a crime, put them in jail. I don't care. I mean, I'm not one of those people.
Silly.
I'm not one of those people who's going to say, "Oh, this is my team. Go put the other people in jail." My part about it is, if Bill Clinton did what he did, he should have been convicted and put in jail. If John
the tracks.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Put everybody in jail if they've done a crime. I don't care. I mean, prove it.
Let's be honest, right? The system doesn't work. The ATF massacred the people at Waco and faced no, repercussions for that whatsoever. I mean, they were posing with flags and stuff.
Yes.
I mean, they clearly did that on purpose, and they never faced any legal repercussions for that. Ruby Ridge as well. The Clintons have done horrific things.
Yes.
They're not facing any political consequences. But Trump gets consequences. I'll tell you this. I've always wanted to know what happened behind the scenes that got Jeffrey Epstein in prison in the first place.
Oh, I was
Because
thinking of Jeffrey Epstein just a moment ago. Yeah, go on, carry on, Richard.
Because he had the dirt on everyone, right? Which, so is probably thinking about it, what got him killed. But allegedly in Minecraft.
It's definitely what got him killed.
If he had all that dirt in the first place, why was he in prison in the first place? Who did he really piss off? Or was it just a case of, we've got to cover ourselves, he knows too much, let's deal with him?
Well, do you think anybody, that's an interesting thing, because to me, I think that would be one issue that all Republicans and Democrats could agree on, that Jeffrey Epstein needed to be taken care of, including members of the British royal family.
Yeah, including, God,
Yeah.
have you ever watched that panorama? That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing.
So could you get a large amount of leaders of the world to say, yeah, let's just nip this one in the bud?
Let's just nip this one in the bud.
Yeah.
I mean, but you know what I mean? So it's the same curiosity. I'd like to know what happened behind the scenes that put the real powers behind this world in a position to say, right, put Trump, let's get Trump convicted. Because that's the only way a rich person is going to face any consequences, is if the Illuminati or the Lale Lule Lo or whatever you want to call it, that controls the world, decides you're going to face consequences.
Are you not an Illuminati? Are you not trying to be part of the Illuminati?
No, I was in the Freemasons, but it was too boring.
Were you really a Freemason?
I was.
Yeah, I was too. I am. But anyway.
I was like, yes, I'm joining a secret organization. We're going to take over the world. And then you find out it's all organizing raffles and meetings and secret handshakes. And it's just boring.
Yes. If people really knew about a Masonic meeting. And
interesting fact, do you know why the Illuminati was founded? Not the
Yes, because they wouldn't let the guy who founded the Illuminati in the Freemasons.
He didn't want to pay the fees for the
Yes,
Freemasons.
Yeah, that's right. He was such a tightwad that he wouldn't pay the Jews. I mean,
Jews with D-U-E-S.
Yes, I'm not saying pay the Jews. I don't need
D-U-E-S.
I was saying that with a British or a Northern Irish accent, so I'm going to say dues. He wouldn't pay the dues. Yeah. I suppose you can get in a lot of trouble for it. You can almost make the point that maybe the guy Kosminski, if he was the Jack the Ripper man, then he just wrote it down because maybe it had nothing to do with that. Maybe he just didn't want to pay the dues. The dues are the problem.
Well, that's how these secret organizations get formed, The Illuminati formed because they didn't want to pay the Freemason dues. The Majestic 12 is formed because they don't want to pay the Illuminati dues. Yes.
Well, the Majestic 12 is something different. That's got to do with UFOs. And UFOs are definitely real.
Knights Templar was formed because they had all the dues in the first place.
Yes, they were the original dues gang.
The OG secret organization.
Yes, the world's first bankers, if you want to look at it that way. So there you go.
We don't have cool secret organization names anymore.
Well, maybe they do, but they're secret.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
I mean, the best part of being secret is hiding in plain sight and just not talking about it. That's the way I look at it.
That's
I mean,
why I've always said the last place that American military is going to keep a UFO is Area 51. If they've got a UFO, it's going to be in a base in New York or something that the general public can just walk through, because no one's going to ever look twice at that.
yeah, it's probably at the Smithsonian Institute, hiding behind,
With
like
the Billy Ape remains.
yes, yeah. Well, no, I mean they would have keep it out in the open. Maybe they've got it hanging from the ceiling next to the lunar lander. And then what's that thing? Oh, I don't know. It's just
I've
always
always
been
had that. I've always found that funny. That research team that went deep into the Congo looking for the Billy Ape came back with proof, and the Smithsonian was like, "Oh yeah, we've got these skulls. We've had them for years."
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, right? I mean, it's like the British Museum having things that nobody knows about. I mean, there's so many things that you can't categorize, or somebody brought in and characterized it in the wrong place. I mean, there's acres and acres and acres of space that are being taken up by all kinds of things. It's kind of like the idea that somebody says, well, if you could get into the Vatican library, what would you look for? And it's like, well, I'm sure that, what are you going to do? You're going to, go through every page in every book. Because like my mom,
porn in the Vatican library. Bet they've got the best shit.
yes, that book, Sex Lies of the Pope, is probably
exactly. Yeah, no, you know they've got the best shit in the Vatican. All right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's what I'm saying is, like my mom was an interesting lady. She used to like hide money around the house, you know what I mean? And so I remember whenever we were clearing it out, you literally had to go through every page of every book to see if there was money in it. You know what I mean? Probably somebody at the Goodwill bought a book with £300 in it or something. You know what I mean? Which is a good day for them. But, that's the way she was. She stuffed money places. And I'm sure that there was money that got lost, or I still haven't found it, so that's the way it goes. But anyway, that's what happened with that. But then everybody is, and the thing that's offensive to me mainly is that this comparison between Donald Trump and Jesus. I find it so sort of offensive as a Christian person to think you're comparing Donald Trump to Jesus Christ.
Well, there's so many comparisons. I mean, Jesus hung around with a bunch of whores as well.
Yeah. Right.
Lord have mercy.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
That's not blasphemy. That's in the book. He hung around with prostitutes.
I know. Yeah.
I know. It's just funny.
Yes. But I'm just saying, okay, by biblical right, if you're going to make that comparison, if Donald Trump wants to die for our sins, I'm all for it then. Compare away.
In Minecraft, allegedly in Minecraft.
Yes. I'm just saying, in order to make that comparison work, biblically, he would have to be willing to sacrifice himself for our and it doesn't seem like that's in the books anytime soon. So, although if he has a stroke or a heart attack, he'll be canonized, as soon as possible by evangelists as Saint Donald Trump. That's my thing. And then we'll have to see what the next who the next person is. Do you think that anybody else would have that kind of a mojo? Do you think anybody else has it, Richard? Do you think that if he were to, knock on wood, I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody, but let's just say if he were to drop dead, hypothetically, and I am knocking on wood here at people, if he were to do that, do you think anybody could actually step in and take over that kind of situation? I don't think anybody has that sort of quality of the Teflon Don. You know what I mean? Everything just sheets off them. Whereas I don't think that's true of other people. Other people have tried it, but the shit sticks to them. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, I'm not entirely sure.
I'm thinking. Sorry.
Go on, sorry, you, Richard. You go.
I'm thinking. Sorry, there was dead air, but I was really considering the question: who could replace Trump
and get away with what he? I mean, as a lot of people think, get away with what he's gotten away with. We don't know that that's true. I mean, we don't know that he's gotten away with anything. But
Vince McMahon.
I don't think so, because he got accused of something, and he's not the head of the WWE anymore, is he?
I assume so, but he could be the next Trump.
Yeah, well, maybe Elon Musk, maybe.
Nah, Elon Musk is too liberal.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Well, I don't see that necessarily. I mean, he is a total disruptor. I think he is one of those people who would go against what the majority wants just so he could say he did it. You know what I mean? It just seems to me like he really enjoys kind of going in and doing the opposite of what people tell him to do. You mean maybe that's even more predictable than anything else. I mean, if people are so oppositionally opposed to anything that you ask them to do, that's actually pretty easy to control. You know what I mean? You just tell them the opposite of what you want them to do. You know what I mean? The reverse psychology of the reverse psychology. I don't know. Anyway, Tom wanted to talk about something before I started going into this whole.
Yeah, about, you went on this 30-minute diatribe about something you don't care at all about.
No, I watched it. No, listen, I watched it. I didn't care whether we talked about it because I really don't think. No, but listen, everybody was thinking this was going to be some watershed moment where people were going to say, oh, look, here he is. He's a criminal now. He's 34-time felon. That's it. He's never going to get elected.
But he can still run, can't he?
Yeah, he can still run. He can still win. And
so he still will win.
Yeah. I mean, and to be honest with you, because of the fact that, I mean, this might be the only trial that goes to trial before the election.
Maybe that's why he went through with it. He didn't use his connections to quash it. He wanted to martyr himself.
Well, maybe. But I mean, at the same point in time, everybody always says, well, he does everything that he promises. Well, so far he was supposed to go on the stand every time because he's always like, oh, I'm going to get on the stand. No, he didn't go on the stand. He didn't defend himself. They had one witness. They had one witness for the defense, and that was it. So, I mean, literally, it's just one of those things where, I mean, you can't keep him at his word. That's for sure. Because he breaks it all the time. He says, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And he never does it. So, I mean, you can't take that away. That's a verifiable fact.
I'm pretty sure that he would have taken the stand if his defense team would have let him. But, sometimes less is more. And if they wanted a viable defense, letting him take the stand was the best move forward.
Well, I mean, having one witness who then totally disrespected the court and tried to, side eye the judge and try to be an asshole about it, probably not your best bet. So less was more in the fact that they didn't want to even put a defense up, but that's the way that goes. I mean,
lest we forget, this is the president who literally said we should inject ourselves with disinfectant to prevent COVID.
Oh, that was just unbelievable. Yeah, I remember
regularly.
that. So he said that halfway through a press conference or something.
Yeah.
Didn't he? Did I remember? He turned round and said, "Yeah."
To the expert.
Just turned around, nodded to his people, and said, "Can we look into people been talking about injecting bleach? Can we look into that, or is that viable?" And they were sort of.
No, it wasn't his people. It was experts on the disease. And my favourite thing about that entire press conference is the way you can see them physically try to crawl into their own skin out of embarrassment.
Right. Well, but that was I think that was the same time that they were actually talking about using light in the blood to kill a disease. Like literally, you know how whenever you go into a kitchen and you see those blue lights that's supposed to kill all the bacteria and all that in the kitchen, and he was wondering why you couldn't just take your blood, filter it through this thing like a dialysis machine with light. So, I mean, he was blue skying, but maybe a medical conference on the state of the disease is probably not one of those places to come up with this idea.
Yeah, I mean, what he did, in the words of Arnold Rimmer, was come up with a theory that was so revolutionary and groundbreaking that they just couldn't understand it.
Yes, it's beyond that. There's a big thing in America now about this character called Trevor. Is it Trevor? No, something Howard. You know what I mean? He's this sort of Terrence Howard, is it maybe? And he's coming up with like this new ideas of how the universe works and everything like that. He's an actor. But it would be interesting to do a program at some point about this new way of thinking that he's come up with. That the idea that 1 times 1 is 2, not 1. Like the basic structure of everything is wrong. I mean, I haven't listened to it, but apparently he's making a lot of this Cat Williams character and this Terrence something Howard, I think it is, and they would like to get him and Terrence Howard and Neil deGrasse Tyson in a room with a big bong and just let them talk it out. Which I would actually love to watch. I would watch that.
Yeah, that'd make for some entertaining TV. I'd watch that.
Yeah.
So speaking of entertaining TV, are you caught up with EastEnders yet?
I still am not. No.
Dude,
well,
it was such a good week.
So did Nish come back?
Nish came back. He says he's dying. I thought he was full of crap. Then he went to hospital, and the doctor said he was dying. But then the same doctor said it again, in a consulting. So I'm starting to think, maybe he's got this doctor on the payroll, because I don't believe for 1 second he's actually dying. I think this is a manipulative tactic.
Oh, okay. So basically, that whole family has no problem making out that they're really sick and dying.
Yeah, I mean, that's how Suki came into the square. So
yes, exactly. So, I mean,
But that happened. And then he, because the family was still like, we don't want anything to do with you, even if you're dying. He then started giving away the businesses. Yeah, he gave Kathy her cafe back for £1.
Oh.
So she's back in charge of Kathy's. And, the family was like, you're not doing that. So now Vinny's pretending to have forgiven him on Suki's orders to get control of the businesses back.
Oh.
So that happened. George and Elaine still not back together. She's still mad at him for kissing Cindy. Cindy's trying to get back with George, it looks like. Don't think that's going to work out. I really hate Cindy. Like, I didn't like her back in the day either, 20 years ago, and I don't like her now either.
No. No. Yeah. She's rough. She's very rough.
Yeah.
And what I find out about it is, but at the same time, the only way that you would think that that would be a good thing, not for George's sake, but just to screw over Ian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because you really need another crying scene that we can make a meme out of. Ian
Yeah.
Peel.
That lasted for years.
Oh my god. But it's but no,
They're doing a side story with Harvey that he's made a new friend.
oh
It's a female, and Jean's getting a little jelly.
I
But, I don't think he'd cheat on Jean.
well, I mean, but lately haven't they been sort of getting a wee bit sticky with each other? I mean, or were they all set? Were they all back on?
Yeah, they're
on
all set. Everything's fine between them.
Yeah. How's Stacy doing?
Haven't seen Stacey for 2 weeks.
Really?
She popped in for 5 minutes last week when Whitney was leaving,
Oh.
but that was it. That was the only time I've seen her.
Oh, so she's probably having a 2-week holiday in Benidorm
Yeah,
currently.
They each get 3 weeks off, so
Mm,
you don't see them.
yeah. So, well, that's all right then. That's all right. You got to enjoy your summer holidays. What's the weather like over there?
It has been pissing down with rain all week, but the last 2 days have been really nice. Apparently, we're getting a heat wave.
Oh, it's not been great down here, down in the south of the country. We've had a couple of good days, but it's been pretty overcast a lot of the time, very windy, and a fair few spots of rain. I mean, we've just had a couple of days out at theme parks, and we've had to endure a lot of rain. But it's all right. It's been manageable.
Yeah, well, we're getting into the stage now where it's going to get hot. July and August, man.
It's quite the first world problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Nicer problems to have. Lola's still dead, Gabby.
Rain. I mean,
we haven't figured out a way to bring Lola back from the dead.
I'm just waiting for there to be another thing in the square and another video of her to show up.
Well, did they try to inject bleach into her veins to kill off the cancer? Because I heard that totally works. Well. So I'm trying to think.
As it happens. So go. I was going to go somewhere different, Kevin. Go on.
No, go do it.
No, you haven't talked at all, Tom. Go for it.
Oh, just looking through a box. I found something that is relevant to us. It's at some point, Richard, I think we decided we'd try and come up with a formula for deciding your patron saint name. And it has my notes very much have clutching at straws feels to them. They're things like your favorite holiday and your favorite hobby and the location of your favorite holiday. And that sort of thing. It really doesn't look very well. I think it would be one of those things where you'd need to have a list of multiple choice, like your birth month and your star sign or something like that would be a much more sensible way to do it. I did not get very far with this, but do you remember us talking about that, Richard?
I do, yeah. Yes.
I can't remember the rest of the conversation, but I just happened to find my notes tidying up this box, a box full of tut, and they were somewhere at the bottom of it. And I wonder. I must love to revisit that. I'd love to try and come up with something a bit better than your favorite hobby and the location of your first holiday you can remember. I mean, it's got to be stuff that's,
Yeah,
something a
because
lot
then
more
my
memorable than
site
that.
name would be Twitching Skegness
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Saint
or
Ibiza.
Skeg Vegas, as they call it these days.
Oh yeah, not even Blackpool.
Not even Blackpool. No,
I went to
Skegness is
Blackpool.
apparently better than Blackpool.
I went
Oh
to
really?
Blackpool recently. It was bloody good. Loved it there.
Last time I went to Blackpool was like 15 years ago.
I haven't been to Blackpool in 30 years, mate. I mean, that's a long time ago. I
I
mean,
love how
things.
like it doesn't matter where you're from in England, like down south, up north, Northern Ireland, everyone's been to Blackpool. Like,
Well, yeah, because that's
Well,
that's the Las Vegas of the British Isles.
we hadn't
sadly
gone
correct.
until a few months ago. We went to Blackpool for the first time. None of us had been there before till this Easter. We've only just gone. It was great.
Yeah, you
But
get
you have gone.
the electric trams and all those different things. The Blackpool
And
Tower.
a lot of horse taxis on the front. They all have this special license, and they have to have this license on display. Hopefully, that includes something about animal welfare as well. But yeah,
Yes.
that was a quite an original feature of Blackpool. I haven't seen that anywhere else. I don't think horses doing little cabs as standard. Just it was only seemed to be up and down the seafront, but I don't think I've seen that anywhere else. Not even in London. In London, it's all people. It's people with these massive, great pedal-powered bike things that they use to trot around the West End and Leicester Square and stuff.
Yes. Well, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, it's tough to. I mean, unless you have one of those bags behind the horse that collects the leavings, as it were, it's not easier. It's not easy. I mean, imagine, like the horse guards themselves. I mean, you have to have a crew going behind them cleaning up the horse crap, and they're just coming up from St. James's Palace to the Buckingham Palace, aren't they? That's where they're located, isn't it? St.
It
James's.
creates jobs and circulates money.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yep. Creates jobs.
I've got a friend who believes that throwing litter out of your car window and just dropping litter on the ground when you're walking is a good thing because it creates jobs. And so
Yeah.
he deliberately litters. I tried to point out to him that A, it's illegal, and B, it's a danger to animals, and C, it's very unpleasant to look at in the meantime.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very big problem when, especially if you're, I mean, because let's face it, Northern Ireland's mostly rural anyway, but you throw something like that out next to a cow or sheep or something like that, they're into that, getting things stuck in their throat and all that. I mean, what a head of cattle or sheep or whatever costs. I mean, I'm sure that if somebody got caught doing that in Northern Ireland, they'd have somebody around to their door, giving them having a word with them, as we would put it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because I mean, that's just one of those things you can't. It's just so dangerous for things, and the people who end up cleaning it up are farmers. You know what I mean? And they've already got a job. I mean, it's not like, I mean, Northern Ireland has a motorway that's, the actual motorway is about 20 miles long. I think if that long, you know what I mean? That's the only motorway there is in Northern Ireland. Anything other than that is just dual carriageway, but that's not a motorway. Richard was impressed whenever we went on the 2 miles of motorway that he went on whenever he was in Northern Ireland. Weren't you, mate?
2 miles.
miles of motorway. We went from Dublin to Belfast. It was pretty much all motorway.
No, but that's a dual carriageway. That's not a motorway. A motorway, okay, so after you leave the airport or go past the airport and you go through the center of Belfast, and then you get on going north or south, that is the only motorway in Northern Ireland. So remember, there was like 7 or 8 lanes across. And then whenever we got past, sort of, up the hill, then it went back to a dual carriageway. I mean, so it's not an M, it's the M1, and there it is. That's what it is in Northern Ireland. But although I will say, if you were coming from the Republic, that road is like glass. That's a great road coming out of the airport to Northern Ireland. I mean, you can tell when you get to Northern Ireland because it's all windy and it goes through all the back
But the
roads.
signs change. It goes
Yeah.
from Irish to English in kilometers to miles.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is whenever it's that nice flat road that looks like it was laid down by the Romans 25,000 years ago or 22,000 years ago, that's in the Republic. I mean, that is a great road. You know what I mean? But then whenever you get to Northern Ireland, it's all the way over the place. It's like they've graded the roads in the Republic. You know what I mean? Which back in the old days, it wasn't like that. It was the exact opposite. If you wanted to see a good road, you went to the north. You went to see British roads for British people, not Irish roads for Irish people. But it's the exact opposite now. You know what I mean? It's funny how the world has turned, mate. So that's it.
How
Brexit.
so? But you
Brexit
mean that British people are safe in Ireland now?
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I'm sure they are, mate. You know what I mean? Because here's the thing. Ireland now has to be a cosmopolitan place. I mean, they're already having the problems that like London has had, or the way that Britain has had it. Whenever we were growing up, and when I was growing up, everybody was all hostile about Pakistani people and Indian people moving in because they were coming in and taking all our jobs and all that stuff.
And all our women.
Yeah. And, now it's the Republic that are complaining about that. They say, well, we can't afford a house now. Can't do this because Microsoft's all moving in and a lot of people are coming from Eastern Europe and doing the jobs there. And so, a lot of people are coincidentally young males. This doesn't seem to be a worldwide phenomena, but young males who are indigenous, in other words, they were born there, can't stand anybody else coming in and doing a job, even if they didn't want to do it. You know what I mean? Because that's the funny part, but anyway, that's just the way it is. I mean, you go to the Republic now, you go to Dublin, you hardly hear a Dublin accent. If you go to Cork, I'm sure that it's hard to hear a Cork accent anymore because Microsoft and all these different places are opening up huge places there for the European thing, and they're hiring all kinds of different people. So, I mean, that's it. So, hopefully it's an interesting thing, and it is hard because if you really think about it, I mean, you look at the amount of people who are Irish citizens, right? So it's about 7 or 8 million people in a whole island of Ireland. But I think if you use the Irish definition of who can become a citizen of Ireland, there's potentially 60 million people around the world that could move to Ireland to become an Irish citizen. So even if you just said everybody that was potentially an Irish citizen came back, you'd have the same problem. You see what I'm saying? I mean, basically, the only standard is that one of your grandparents had to be born in Ireland or on Ireland, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland.
I could get an Irish passport then.
Yeah, exactly. You could get an Irish passport. That's what I'm saying. And then at that point in time, you could travel all over the EU. That's why a lot of people are doing it. I mean, there's a lot of unionists in Northern Ireland to have an Irish passport. They'll never tell you that, but they do. You know what I mean? Because in the end, everybody knows which way their bread's buttered. You know what I mean? So, the British system of Brexit may or may not have been a good idea, allegedly. But that's what I'm saying. The people in the north voted that through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
Gabby
industrial.
asks, does anybody else think that we should get the employee discount if we use self-checkout?
Well, I think most people already do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't pay for everything.
Yeah, because they basically, that's it. I mean, I never understood why they thought that was a good idea. I never understood it. It's kind of that whole idea of, it seemed like a good idea, but you remember at the time they were saying, okay, yeah, this is this automated service that's going to do this and that and take care of all these things. Well, those machines in itself, what do you think a machine like that costs? A couple of $100,000, or it's got to be quite a lot of money. And so, in order to make,
it's got to be less than an employee cost, or they wouldn't do it.
You'd think that, but amortized over time. You see what I'm saying? You've got to figure it out. It's not going to be one of those things where it's going to pay itself off in the first year. It's got to be several years. But then they're not taking into the account the fact that, theft will happen. Theft will happen. It was.
I mean, I never pay for everything on self-checkout, allegedly, in Minecraft.
So I was watching. It's an interesting thing that you were talking about that today, because I was watching this lady. She was from the Republic, and she was talking to the fact that she went into her local shop and she went back to the deli counter, and it had a number, like a number system. And so she took her number, and so she ordered, and then they put the corresponding number on the sandwich or whatever it was she bought, and they put it in one of those pneumatic things like you get at, pneumatic tubes. And so the pneumatic tube went up through, and it came to the counter, and she went up to the front and had to pay for it, right? And then she said something about the cost of living crisis, and I was, no indication that the food cost any more than it used to, just that she had to pay for it, and that was contributing to the cost of living crisis. So that's the way it goes. Yes, actually having to pay for the things that you went into the store to get is creating a cost of living crisis. What do you know about that?
For real.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it?
Tom, do you have anything to say? You've been quiet.
No, not immense. Not about this topic immensely. I'm still just fascinated. Sorry to go back to it by the Trump thing, because I mean I'm just going to go back to that and revisit it because with Kevin's half-hour diatribe, as he so succinctly put it, Richard, I didn't really have a chance to leap in. Besides, who wants to stop Kevin in free flow? It's delightful. No, just that I honestly didn't think they would ever find him guilty. I mean, yes, it remains to be seen that he could be overturned on appeal, but or his sentence, could be very lenient. Who knows? But it is. I never thought it would happen. But then again, is it something that actually plays right into his hands? I mean, is it his people? Because people who support, most of the people who support Trump will either deny it and believe that it's a fix and it's a travesty of justice, or they'll be clever enough to realize that this would galvanize so much of his supporters. Whether or not they believe he's guilty, what really matters is how much support he will gather from this, and it remains to be seen whether it will help or hinder him being re-elected. One thing I do think is very sad, though, is that it's Trump and Biden again. I mean, seriously, is this the best both parties can do? Like, really? I mean, they're so old. And I'm really surprised that Biden isn't just calling it a day at one term. But what president has ever done that?
Right. I mean, the thing that I'll say about that, Tom, just quickly, I know that I'm not going to go on about it, but you see, this is the idea of, this is why some of the people say that democracy, we don't necessarily need a democracy in America because we don't have one anyway. And to a certain degree, you don't, because of the fact that we're not voting for who Americans aren't voting for who they want. You see what I'm saying? Both of them are terrible. They're both terrible. But the way that the party system has it locked down over here, there's no way to have a person that you want to have as president actually get to the point where you can vote for him. I mean, that's the thing that's tough. So when Democrats say, "Oh, we're trying to save democracy from these people," because both Republicans and Democrats cast each other as fascists, you know what I mean? They're both fascists as far as the other team are concerned, but they're both trying to save democracy because the other side's fascist. But at the same point in time, you don't get to vote for who you want to vote for anyway. So, that's the sad part. So a lot of people say, well, why do you really actually need a democracy? Well, that's not a situation that the people have created. That's a situation that the government has created. So, what do you do? I mean, I have a problem, I still have a problem with the fact that we don't have a national referendum. Take all the things that are ideas that you want to do, gay marriage, abortion, whatever, put it on a national referendum. Whatever that vote is what it is. Why do we have 9 people sitting in Washington, D.C., making that decision for us? They're 9 freaking people. Why do we need that? Because we're not smart enough? Is that what the founding fathers really thought? That you guys are all dumbasses? Well, to a certain degree, they did, because that's why we have an electoral college. Because they didn't think that the average voter was smart enough to vote for president. And that's why we don't have a popular vote for president. That's why the electoral college decides it, because they thought we were too stupid. So in some respects, is that really it? I mean, that's a sad part.
Well, I think you have to have a proper system. You can't do government by referenda completely, because there's far too many decisions to be made. We need to.
No. I agree with you. I'm not saying that. I'm saying societal issues. So things like, okay, should abortion be legal? Should gay marriage be legal? That's got nothing to do with deciding anything to do with the running of the government or where the pennies are spent or anything like that. So realistically, you're still going to have the thing saying, where does the money go? I'm going to disperse this money to the council. How's the council going to spend it? I'm not saying you should have a referendum on that, but ideas, ideas like, societal things where you want to say, like I said, the things that, that everybody's getting worried about here. You know what I mean? Should you have this kind of thing or this kind of thing? I mean, that's easy enough to do, in my opinion. I mean, states have referendums. You know what I mean? So should we do this? Should we do that? Should we inculcate abortion law into the state constitution? Yeah. I mean, they just added onto the thing. And that's the only way around it in a lot of ways, is because, otherwise you are giving up the idea of who's running this country in a certain way to a very, very small group of unelected officials. The Supreme Court's not elected by us. They have a lifetime on the bench. and so they just decide whatever they want to do. I mean, to me, the more interesting thing that happened this week was not the Trump thing. It was that one of the members of the Supreme Court, whose wife was flying the flag upside down and showing all these different, ideas of supporting the January 6th people, didn't recuse himself from the scenario. Didn't feel like he had to. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. You know what I mean? That's more consequential.
Nikki says, it's insane to me that he could technically run the country from prison. That legitimately just shocks me. He could be president, but he can't vote for himself. And then she goes on to say, then again, I believe that felons should be able to vote. So I assume she's having a stroke or something.
Yes. Well, yeah, no, there's a lot of states that'll do allow felons to vote, but not while you're serving your sentence.
Not vote, able to vote.
Oh, vote?
Yeah, able to vote.
Yes.
That's what she said. She's,
Yes, Bodie McBoatface.
She's having a stroke.
Yes. That's better than I could type, though. I mean, I'm going to be honest. You've seen some of the things I've typed in. It's a mess. A mess. I hope you're doing well, Nikki. Thanks for listening.
And she doesn't care if Trump wins or not because she doesn't have a leg in this horse.
Yes, no leg in this horse.
Exactly.
Well, somebody did say to me that they because I live right next to the border, and and this guy who's across the border from me said, whenever the Trump verdict came in, he said, this is the best day for Canada that I can remember. I said, well, what's it got to do with Canada? He goes, well, Trump's a felon now. He can't come to Canada. So there you go. He's barred from coming to Canada. And I think unless you get actual approval from, most of the places that he's going to for presidential reasons, he can't go back to Ireland or any of the places he owns a golf course. You can't get into the United Kingdom if you got a felony.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to enforce that particular rule. Are there any final thoughts before we call it a night?
Nah. I hope next week we don't have to talk about this. And honestly, I was prepared to talk about it. However,
because you had bugger all to say on it this week.
No, I was prepared to talk about it, but that doesn't. Just because I'm prepared for something doesn't mean. Okay, but listen.
60 minutes of him talking non-stop about this.
Listen. I could talk about the battleship Bismarck, even though I'm not going to be on, Mastermind.
I'm going to go ahead and put that in the description for this episode of the show. That was gold.
Well,
against Kevin's explicit wishes, we talked about Trump.
Okay, I think next week we should talk about the forthcoming British general election. There'll be plenty to talk about for sure. So, should we call it a night, guys?
Yes. And I'm just making sure. I'm going to make sure that I'm in the right place. Thanks for reminding me. On Monday, I'll have to call down and make sure that I'm in the right district. That I've got myself in the right venue. Where in the house I'm in now, because I think it might have changed. So anyway, I'll take that up with the Northern Irish voting council.
The lads.
Well, good night, everybody.
Bye.
Well, we will return next week, despite the hopes of many. A good night, everyone.
Bye. Sorry about